The following is a sponsored program. High Desert Broadcasting is not responsible for the views or claims expressed in this program.
Good morning. You're listening to AVNewsCast.com on News Talk 1380, and I hope you all took your heart meds.
Yeah.
We've got a great show planned today. Really, really great show. On Friday, a gentleman by the name of Richard Stein. He's a convicted sex offender, registered sex offender, lives in L.A. County, actually resides in Palmdale, was arrested, rearrested, I should say, on kidnapping and or robbery and or kidnapping with intent to rape.
Oh. Unbelievable.
On Saturday, I had a conversation with him on the phone from jail, from L.A. County Jail. On the show today, we will have Michelle Egberts from the AV Eastern Kern Second Chance. We will also have Assemblyman Steve Fox. Today is the first day of the Assembly back in session, so we will tie Steve Fox in from his office in Sacramento. I believe have we got Michelle on the line now? Michelle, are you with us?
Hello? Michelle?
Hey, Michelle.
Nope, not there yet.
How you doing?
Hey,
There we are.
Good.
There we are.
We're good. How are you?
Holding up.
Thanks for taking the time to join us. As I mentioned just a second ago, Richard Stein, who had been on our show back in April with you here, was rearrested on Friday on a kidnapping and or robbery and or kidnapping with intent to rape. I spoke to him, and you were on the phone as well, on Saturday from L.A. County Jail. And we discussed why he did it.
What did he say?
And correct me if I'm wrong at all, but what he said was, and the first thing that he said was, he never intended, or his plan was not to rape her.
Yeah, just give her a ride?
And
he never would touch her in that way.
okay, but when he was on our show the last time, remember, and I think it was a 17-year-old girl. When he was actually convicted years back.
She was a 16-year-old prostitute posing as an 18-year-old.
Okay, and at that time, he also said he never intended to rape her. That was consensual.
And I don't recall him saying
Right.
that she was a prostitute. He said he met her and they had consensual sex.
Right, but there was more to it. I mean, he didn't mention that. I mean, he was nervous on the show, but yes, she was a prostitute.
Okay, now, what he did say on the phone, he admitted to taking the girl across the street.
Yes.
And he said, he admitted to that wholeheartedly, and he said his intent was to get her money. But he didn't know that she had any money, if in fact she did. Right? Did he have a relationship with her or know her from the past?
No.
Not at all.
None at all. He was just frustrated. He's tired. That's what he told us, if you remember.
I understand. But it makes you kind of hard to buy in to the fact that he's a convicted sex offender.
And he happens to pick up a girl.
Right, and... Right, exactly. But
he picks up a girl. What shows that he had the intent to rape her?
Michelle, are you really in the position of trying to defend him? Are you doing that?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
okay. While we're at it, before we get too far into it,
I'm defending the kidnapping with intent to rape. Yes.
I also want to announce that we have another guest on the show. Yeah, come on. We have a guest on the show. It's Traci Portillo from the VH1 hit The OCD Project. That's also joining us now to.
Hi, Traci.
Hi, Traci.
Hey,
Hi.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Michelle, let me ask you a question. Now, Richard Stein, he was your poster boy, and I'm and I'm not trying to say anything totally negative, and I'm not trying to beat you up or anything, but he was, because you were really advocating for him in the city of Palmdale, because you wanted him to have the ability to do things that he wasn't able to do, like move back into his home.
I wanted him to have the ability to go back home.
Right, where children reside.
No, there's no children that reside at his home.
It was near a school?
It was near a school.
Pardon?
It was near a school.
It's near a school, but he has a stay order. L.A. County, there's a stay order. okay, over conditions. However, with the parole department, they had an unreasonable condition on him that said that he was AB 113, which is a high-risk sex offender, and he wasn't. There's two elements to that in order to be a high-risk sex offender.
Well, did he know he wasn't supposed to pick up women regardless?
Where does it say he can't pick up women? Where does it say
Not the way he did it.
Not the way he did. But there's a lot of things that people do under stress and duress.
I've been pretty stressed out,
Okay.
and I've never done
No,
anything
you know
like
what? This
that.
is the thing. I totally understand that there's elements of people that should not be classified as sex offenders. I totally get it. But, Michelle, when you happen to be representing a bad apple, it's not too late to just call it a day and say, you know what, I picked the wrong one, because clearly this one was the wrong one.
Nope. You know, I mean, what?
Well, I
what
guess
am
you're just
what
stubborn.
What am I supposed to do, Angelina? What am I supposed to do, Angelina?
No.
I mean, you're supposed to
Desert
just
him-
cut your
desert him
losses,
because-
dude. Cut your losses. This guy is a repeat
the law.
offender.
This
If it
isn't the law.
if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
He gave up. He said on the phone, Michelle, that he gave up.
He did give up.
and he
did
said on
give
the
up,
phone-
and that's exactly why. But why did he give up?
Okay.
Because of the conditions that he was under. They made him transient. Parole took him out of his home that he had been living in 14 months because of the Palmdale ordinance, and
Right.
made him transient.
So it's everyone
And
else's
he's
fault but his.
No, I'm not saying it's just.
That's what it
his
sounds
fault.
like.
No, I'm not. Believe me, I'm not placing blame on anybody.
You
Because
should.
I-
It's Richard's
Pardon?
fault. You should.
Pardon?
You should, because it's his fault.
What you're saying, Michelle, is that
I don't
he was so
condone what
beaten
he
up.
did. I don't condone what he did.
It
but I'm
sounds
not,
like it.
I'm not
Michelle,
going to
can I-
abandon him.
Go ahead,
Can I
Tracy.
jump in here
yeah,
for a second?
absolutely.
Okay, I just want to respectfully ask you, you said that the sex offender was tired and under stress. Does that mean he gets a free pass?
No, that does not mean he gets a free pass, Terry. And I'm not condoning what he did, so let me make that very clear. All right? I don't condone crime, but I will not abandon him. Our organization will not abandon him because of this. They are using, he had no intent to there's no kidnapping. There was no intent to rape. That's what I'm concerned about. That's what I'm concerned about.
When you
Maybe
put
it
something, Michelle, when you put something in someone's back and come at them from behind and force them across the street and tell them if they do anything, you're going to shoot them, that's
Right.
kidnapping.
Maybe it didn't start out with that intention, but it evolved
Is
into
that
it.
kidnapping?
Yes, it is. You're
Is that
taking me
kidnapping?
You're taking me under duress somewhere else.
Okay.
So you're taking away my free will to say, "Get away from me, you creep."
You know, what Richard
But-
did say on the phone, Michelle, was that he wanted to get caught. He was looking for an opportunity, something that he could create that he needed to get back in the system. He couldn't take it out on the street anymore. He was basically homeless. He was foodless. He had, no gas for a vehicle. He had no job. He had no food, and he needed to get back in. So he created an opportunity to get back in. That's what he said on the phone, right?
It's just, yes,
Pretty much.
pretty much.
Yeah, and
It's
And
like
I think
Manson.
I think if you lived under the conditions, Steve, that he was imposed to live under, you would want to do the same thing. I mean, a sex offender cannot even go to and stay at a shelter. Grace Resource Center won't even help a 290 offender. The services that are out there are not for 290 offenders. There's a lot of discrimination towards them, and I want to warn all the parents out there: if you have teenage kids and they're sexting and everything, they're going to become sex offenders if they get caught.
now,
That's a huge
you know,
jump from what Richard does.
you had litigation with the city of Lancaster over their sex offender ordinances, and the city of Lancaster rescinded their ordinances. The city of Palmdale also rescinded their ordinances without having to get into litigation.
And the city of Santa Fe Springs elected not to enforce their ordinance anymore with a threat of litigation.
Now, because and your argument was that their ordinances were basically unconstitutional.
Yes,
Right.
they were ex post facto.
Right.
Yes.
Now, if up in the Senate,
and unconstitutional, but
okay. Now, up in the Senate, and if SB 386 goes into effect and does become law, that would actually allow the cities to put back in their ordinances with the state backing them up.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
But it's not going to happen.
Okay, but a lot of people are saying
that's not going to pass. But you know, it's like the Attorney General's office warned back in 2008 to the cities not to impose these ordinances because of the constitutionality of them, and that specifically came from the Assistant Deputy Attorney General.
Now, but to keep the residents safe, isn't this a great argument with Richard Stein that more ordinances need to be in place to keep predators off the street?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. He's not a predator.
Right?
He's not a predator?
No. There's a difference between a predator and an offender.
Well, what is the difference, honey? What do you think he did that night?
A serious violent predator is a lot different than the sex offender.
No, you know what? They kind of caught him in the act. You don't know
Caught
what
him in
would have.
Caught him in what act? The act of desperation and robbing someone?
No, he was caught in the act of kidnapping with a gun.
No, he didn't have a gun, though.
Well, what did he have?
He didn't have anything.
He put something to her back, so
he let her to
believe.
believe.
He let her to believe. Yeah, and if you did it, you'd be committing a crime.
Mm-hmm. He committed a crime, but he did not commit the crime of kidnapping with the intent to rape.
Because you're in his head and you're psychic.
And you have to understand, Angelina, that it has been well documented that a sex offender has a 1.9% of recidivism rate.
Well, you know what? Your rates are going down.
And no, it's not.
I mean, it looks like it.
Angelina,
I'm
how many
just
sex offenders
listen,
do we
Michelle.
have in the valley? No, I'm asking you.
I don't
How
know.
many sex
Way
offenders-
too many.
Oh, way too many. Okay, let me tell you something. In
4,000?
2011, between
4,000.
2011 and 2012, okay, there was 900 new sexual abuse cases, and only one of those individuals was a sex offender, a registered sex offender. These are new sex offenders out there. Those are the ones
Richard's
that you
not
need to be
new.
worried about. Those are the ones that you need to be worried about.
I was
Angelina.
a little concerned. I'm concerned with Richard, honey.
I'm concerned about all of them.
But you know what? We will let justice take its course with Richard.
But
and
let
we'll
me
see what
just
happens.
let me
Okay.
just say this. Let me just say this. I totally get your argument about the need for the tiered registry, and I also get the argument that they need to have a place to go because we don't want them loitering the streets.
And that's why I'm dealing with them.
And-
I took them out. I have three retired parole agents with me now.
Right, now
Okay, we are taking care of these guys, but we will not.
Richard was on the streets, though.
Huh? Pardon?
Richard was on the streets.
We couldn't get his parole agent to approve any address to put him at.
Okay, now...
That's the problem that we had. We had housing for him.
Okay,
Could he go to Michelle's place? She has a halfway house.
Pardon?
Could he go to your house?
Do you
He
have a
can come to my
halfway
house because I live in Kern County.
right.
I would have had him at my house.
You know, you've been, when it comes to Richard, you've been advocating with the parole department, with the city of Palmdale, to make things easier for Richard, right?
For all the 290s.
I know, but Richard has been the person. He's been your poster boy, and he's been your.
Not only Richard, there's Andy too.
Okay, but
You know,
we're talking about.
Andy could be sitting in prison today if it wasn't for me.
Okay,
Should I have abandoned him?
here's the thing. Okay, when this took place on Friday, and what was really ironic, okay, is while this is all going down with Richard, okay, Michelle and Richard, the retired deputy parole officer, and I were actually standing together. Okay, it was very, very ironic. However, when this happened and you heard about this, embarrassing, yes.
I had just gotten out of a meeting with the district attorney, John Morris, when I heard this.
And how did you feel?
Crushed.
Yeah,
Right.
I get that.
Betrayed?
Pardon?
Betrayed?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I still cry.
Yeah.
I totally
know.
get that.
Because I tried. I didn't use my partners being retired parole agents as leverage. With the parole agency here, I would never do that. I just went directly to the top, and now change is happening. But unfortunately, he did it a day too early. Because had this not happened, he would have been able to go home.
Now, when back in June, when Richard had been arrested and then sentenced to 80 days in jail.
That was a parole violation for being for not complying with his parole conditions.
Right, and he only served about like 24 days or something like that.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And that is considered a felony. You know, a technical violation is when they put a parole hold on someone. It's not a new felony charge, but it's a felony hold. And, you know, there was a lot of reporting in the Antelope Valley Press by Chuck Bostwick regarding that, but it is a felony hold. It's called a 3056 hold, our hold only. And yes, it was a technical violation. And then previous to that, he had a misdemeanor warrant placed out on him for not completing his DUI classes because he was supposed to report to the courthouse. And he took care of that. And then when he was in custody for his for a technical violation, it went to warrant again. And that's what we're trying to stop. You know, the in and the out.
Does Richard have any strikeable offenses?
Well, yes, he does. Right?
Yeah,
Yes. Rape. He had. Remember, he had a rape by force or fear conviction.
Right.
That was a strike.
And kidnapping would be a strike.
He's not going to get kidnapping.
Okay.
What do you think it's going to be?
Yeah, how do we know?
Yeah, I mean, I get that your heart is in a good place, Michelle, but not necessarily is his. I mean, I'm just saying sometimes you're back in the wrong card. I mean, honestly, sometimes you are.
He has been demoralized. He has been broken.
I think all of
Michelle,
us have
if he wanted to get off the street, he could have went into 7-Eleven and stole a candy bar. He didn't have to do what he did to get off the street. That puts somebody else. I get it.
I can't. I'm not condoning his choice. Believe me, I'd rather have him do a candy bar too. But I don't condone it. Don't think that I'm sitting here.
I don't think that you're condoning it. I
Right.
just think that you believe that it's a lot more innocent than the intent.
Yes.
And that's what the justice system is for, and that's why he has a private attorney now.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. If Richard, if this crime that he committed is not classified as a sex crime,
Mm-hmm.
it does not do anything to your when it comes to him for your recidivism rate, right?
Correct. Well, correct.
Now, does that make any sense to you at all?
Well, if it's not, I mean, the recidivism rate, you have to understand when you're talking about 290s, you have to talk about the 10,000 that are on parole and the, I think it's, 10,000 that are on parole and probation combined. All right, that's where the recidivism rate comes. It comes from actually the overall whole from CDCR. That's how they break it down, and I did give Steve the report, and I believe I gave it to you too. So does it change it at all? No, it doesn't. I mean, we're
well, I can see that it's not going to change it because you're talking about rating.
This is one person, and that was back in the 90s.
You know what I hear from a local city councilman is, "I told you so."
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. What did he tell me?
Okay.
What did he tell me? I'm protecting the community by removing the barriers. And his ordinance was a barrier, and they knew. I'm sure that the councilman wasn't there when that was enacted back in 2008 in Palmdale. Okay? But that was an unconstitutional ordinance. Now, that was a barrier to these individuals because if you keep pushing them out, just like with what happened to Richard.
You mean what Richard did?
Yeah. Exactly. What happened?
Yeah, not what happened to Richard.
Yeah, because nothing happened to him yet.
What happened with Richard with parole and what he did. Okay? What he's alleged to have done.
Because there's a great argument for keeping them away from our parks, our movie theaters, and so on and so forth. At this point. No, just at this point. Because until you can find a real place for them to go, we kind of don't want them to take advantage of a young girl walking across the street from a park. Because they'll take that as an opportunity to get back.
This happened in the middle of a street.
Right.
Well, in the middle of the street.
This is where it happened. In the middle of the street. Is that a park? No. Is that a church? No. Is that a daycare center? Is it an arcade? No. Is it a movie theater? No. Okay?
Which brings the argument that a lot of residents say, let's keep pushing him back and let's get him out of the city.
You have to worry about, why push those? They're not, it's not showing that. You can call Captain Don Ford over at Palmdale Station or Captain Pat Nelson. Ask them how many registered offenders, sex offenders, have reoffended with a new sex crime in this valley in the last 3 years. Only one.
You know what, though?
It's the new ones that are coming out. It's the ones that we don't know where they're at.
Right. But you know what, Michelle? But you know, with this attempted kidnapping and or intent to rape and or attempt to rob.
Who said there was an attempted kidnapping? Who said there was an attempted
that's
kidnapping?
The charge, isn't
That's the charge that he was arrested under.
Who assessed that?
Well, she didn't say, I want to go and grab his hand.
Let's go hang out. Yeah.
Go
I'm
hang
asking
out.
you a question. I'm asking you a question. Who assessed the charges?
Okay, the 17-year-old girl stated that he put something to her back, said that if she didn't follow him and continue going across the street, he was going to shoot and kill her. That was her statement to the sheriff's deputies.
I have not seen the police report yet.
Okay. All right, I understand that, and
I have not seen the police report yet.
I understand that, and you know what, Michelle, I'm not here to beat you up. I'm just here to talk about the facts. And one fact that
I feel bad for the 17-year-old.
Oh, wow.
I am very, very sorry for what happened to her. That I am. I am very, very sorry. And so is my client, because my client said that to Steve when we talked to him on Saturday.
he did.
He told Steve to tell her that how sorry he is.
He did. He was.
Yes.
He was. When I spoke to him on the phone, there
Well,
was
you're
no question
sorry
about
when you're caught.
Yeah.
Let's just be real about
please,
it.
please.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to cry for him, Michelle, because, like I said, he could have done a lot of other things. I know that you didn't ask me to. Just let me finish my point. I'm not crying for him because there's 100 other things that he could have done to make that same statement that I need to get back into the system.
But the bottom line is, let's talk reality. That's the choice that he made.
Exactly.
Okay, but you are not going to use my client as a 290 and try and capitalize on that and make a new sex crime out of him. Absolutely not.
Well, we'll see, won't we?
So you think that's where the intent to rape charge phrase is coming in, because that would make it a new sex crime?
He's a registered sex offender. Yes. Right. And we will see justice play out, Angelina.
I hope so.
Don't think I condone what he did, because I don't.
And don't think that I don't appreciate the fact that we do need to have a spot for these people to go to. I completely agree that there needs to be a spot.
Yes.
But since there's not a spot right now,
services that will deal with them, because let me tell you something. The social services that refuse to deal with them get federal and state money. And you can't discriminate.
Yeah, no, I agree that needs to be handled
So technically, when they refuse to assist a sex offender, they could lose their federal funding. Now, his parole agent on January 24th contacted me when they had to make him homeless. She asked for my help, and I'm not going to abandon him. Just like Simon Peter. Simon Peter abandoned Jesus. You know, this is supposed to be a Christian community.
Come on, you're way off now, my sister.
Michelle,
no, I'm not.
Michelle, Richard didn't know it.
Richard is
okay?
Jesus-like now.
Richard didn't know it, but had he not done this a week or two going forward, he would have been able to get some help, right?
His parole conditions the parole conditions up here on the 290s are changing.
Okay, and he didn't know it, and Michelle had been advocating, and that in and of itself must have been another issue that was very upsetting for you, because again, Richard was your poster boy.
Both Richard and Andy.
I understand, but I'm talking about when Richard was on our show, and we've only got another minute to go, but when he was on our show, he said a couple of things to me, and one thing that he said on the show was, when that 16-year-old girl that I got in trouble for, that I went to prison for, I didn't do it. The other thing he said on the show was, and at the time I think he said he was drunk and he had been drinking a lot, but he didn't drink anymore. Although I could smell the booze on him at 8 o'clock in the morning when he was here on the show.
You're crucifying him, Steve.
No, you know what? No, because I will say, there are some people that, Andy, as an example, that, and even our listeners, when they listen to Richard's story, they just didn't buy into it.
Yes.
Okay?
Didn't jive.
Just for whatever reason, they just didn't buy into it.
It doesn't take away the fight, Michelle, because I think that the fight is a valid fight, but not necessarily.
But see, I'm not just fighting for Richard. I'm fighting for the other 137,000 parolees out there.
Yeah.
Okay, and Steve knows what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about, but Richard
knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I know, but Richard was, I don't know if you follow baseball, but Richard was your A-Rod, okay?
Yes, yes, he is, and
yeah.
I'm not going to abandon him. I'm not going to abandon him when the chips fall.
I understand.
But
he has an arraignment this morning.
Actually, I think it's on his warrant. He had a warrant for failure to show enrollment in a DUI class. So I think it's the warrant that's going into the hearing this morning. I do not think it's on the new charges.
Okay.
I believe that one's going to be tomorrow.
We're going to try to come up. We're going to try to come up to the courthouse and cover that arrangement. I want to thank you for taking the time. I know it wasn't easy.
And please, Angelina, Steve, Jeff, Terry, please know that I want to prevent another victim, especially from a registered sex offender. I do, and I'm very, very sorry for what happened to that 17-year-old girl. I am.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Michelle.
I totally believe that.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
All right, we've got to take a break.
Have a wonderful day, guys.
Thanks
for having me on.
No problem.
We're going to take a break. You're listening to the #1 news talk radio program in the Antelope Valley, AVNewsCast. When we come back, we'll bring on Assemblyman Steve Fox, live from Sacramento.
Palmdale has become the talk of the town. It's called the Guidance Charter School, and many parents say it's magical. The Guidance Charter School is WAS certified, scored 783 in academic performance, and has an educational curriculum that exceeds what the state of California recommends. The curriculum is enriched through age-appropriate exposure for information technology, arts, foreign language such as Arabic, and physical education. The Guidance Charter School is now going to have a full CIF sports program with soccer, basketball, track, cheerleading, and more. They're an open enrollment school, publicly funded, and have been in business for 12 years, fully approved by Palmdale School District. The Guidance Charter School has small class sizes such as 20 students in grades K through 3, 25 in 4 through 8, and just 30 students in grades 9 through 12. Call the Guidance Charter School in Palmdale today at 661-272-1701. That's the Guidance Charter School in Palmdale, 661-272-1701. And check out their website at thegcs.org. A better high school choice.
Hi, I'm Diane Caradu. I'm a senior Medicare Patrol volunteer. Our program, sponsored by Medicare and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, helps seniors learn to protect themselves from Medicare frauds and scams. For instance, if you're a Medicare beneficiary and you're approached with an offer of free medical equipment or services, watch out. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Call 1-800-MEDICARE to report it. And go to stopmedicarefraud.gov to find lots of useful tips and important information about new fraud-fighting tools that Medicare now has thanks to the healthcare law. New resources to help law enforcement crack down on criminals and return taxpayer dollars to the Medicare trust funds. And how you can get involved in the fight against fraud. Go to stopmedicarefraud.gov and help make Medicare stronger for all of us. A message from Medicare and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you're thinking about getting your backyard in shape for entertaining, there's only one place to shop, and that's Abadak Outdoors in Palmdale. At Abadak Outdoors in Palmdale, you'll save up to 70% off retail every day at our factory warehouse showroom. Abadak has everything you need to get your backyard in shape, like 7.5-foot tall, 41,000 BTU, freestanding LPG patio heaters for just $159.99. How about a fully enclosed backyard gazebo? Fire up that barbecue and enjoy a nice meal inside one of our Mandalay, Trinidad, or Mykonos freestanding gazebos, just $219.97 every day. If you want wholesale prices, come to Abadak Outdoors in Palmdale. How about backyard shade or car canopies? You can pick a variety of color choices starting at just $129.97. Stop by Abadak Outdoors in Palmdale. We're located at 38940 Trade Center Drive, 1 block east of 10th Street West. The Abadak Factory Showroom is open from 8 to 4 every day. That's Abadak Outdoors at 38940 Trade Center Drive in Palmdale, where you'll save up to 70% off retail every day. Check us out on the web at abadak.com or give us a call at 661-480-1562.
Welcome back to AVNewsCast.com on News Talk 1380.
We're going to bring on Assemblyman Steve Fox right now. Assemblyman Fox.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Good.
On Friday, as you know, in the city of Palmdale, a previously convicted registered sex offender was rearrested on a charge of kidnapping with intent to rape. His name is Richard Stein. He had been on our show before. And he was kind of the poster boy for...
If you'd like to make a call, please hang up.
There we go.
He was kind of the poster boy for the AV Eastern Kern Second Chance organization because they've been advocating to loosen up ordinances, especially, Richard was the main case. Here in the city of Palmdale, they rescinded their sex offender ordinances, as did the city of Lancaster. A lot of the residents are upset about that. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't think that certain people can be rehabilitated at all. I think we have to recognize that.
Amen.
And I don't. And the cities may have had legal pressure on them, so perhaps the state could correct things where they could have some ordinances that wouldn't be challenged.
So, yeah, such as SB 386, which would allow them to put some ordinances into place. It wouldn't have helped in this case with Richard, but California has the largest concentration of registered sex offenders in the nation.
It's actually worse, I think, in Lake LA. You've got 1 out of 50 residents.
Wow.
1 out of 50.
And I think it's even worse. I think the real problem is they release them near where the state prison is, and we have the only state prison in the county in our area. I think a more equitable way would be to release them not at all, but if having said that, the other option is to the area where the court they were convicted was.
Right.
Well, that's the problem. The families come and move. They get their Section 8, then they move to be close to the prison, and then once they're released, they go back with the family, and they're now here. They're fixtures.
What's interesting, Assemblyman Fox, is that Richard Stein, who was arrested on Friday, I spoke to him on the phone. He called from LA County Jail on Saturday. And he said, yes, I admit to taking and forcing this girl across the street. I wanted to rob her of her money. I never had an intent to rape her at all. And Michelle Egberts, who was on the line earlier, is advocating she doesn't want another sex crime against this guy. And she argues that the recidivism rate on sex offenders is down around 1.9%. Now, to me...
That's 1.9 too many.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. To me, this, kidnapping with intent to rape, and she doesn't want the intent to rape, kidnapping in and of itself should be another sex crime.
Yeah, it should, because of your history.
I think we shouldn't even let it get to that point. I think they should have, right now, if they're under 14, they do it with a person under 14, it's life imprisonment. Perhaps that number should be lifted even higher, where they automatically have a life imprisonment rather than just put it from ages 1 through 14. I don't think we should get to that point. I think we should just, if they do the crime, many people just do not change. They're creatures of habit. And I think we have to recognize that. I think there's a number of solutions. One is obviously a longer sentence or a life sentence. Another is, and I don't want to always have to pay for it, but we have to we have to do a better job. If we're going to treat them, we have to do a better job of treating them. And if we recognize that they can't be treated, we have to really recognize that some people just can't get better. Then they have to be at least taken away from the rest of us.
Right, housed.
It's interesting, Assemblyman, that you mentioned treatment. Richard Stein had been on our show back in April, and when he was here on our show, I was standing face to face with him, and he said, I used to drink a lot, but I don't drink anymore. And while he was saying that, I could smell the vodka on his breath. And, he needed treatment. he couldn't, and I didn't know that, he could not, he was homeless and could not even get into Grace Resource Center or a shelter because he's a registered 290 sex offender.
The problem is with the treatment they get in prison is a one treatment fits all, and that doesn't work.
Right.
And we have to recognize that too. That there are symptoms such as the drinking and the drugs, and when they have those have to be treated. If you don't treat them, the person's not going to change.
Well, because that removes your inhibitions when you're doing the drinking and the drugs. So it takes what's already back there and
puts it to the front.
It kills the impulse control.
Now Richard Stein had been arrested back in June and was sentenced to do 80 days, of which he only served about 24 days. And he didn't want to be released in 24 days.
Well, the federal government's wrong in their realignment to put prisoners out. They say it's cruel and unusual if we have too many prisoners in one area, but no one's saying that it's also cruel and unusual punishment to us, the public, to be subjected to it. I mean, the sword cuts both ways here. Obviously, the revolving door in our prison doesn't work.
No.
What kind of message do we send where you get an 80-day sentence and you're out in 24? I've had someone that was sentenced to a year, and the next day they're knocking on my door in my law office, and I'm recognized, well, gee, the system didn't work.
Well, look at they're going to be responsible for the death of Lindsay Lohan because she's driving herself into the grave, and they're not keeping her locked up.
Right. Now, a lot of the residents in the Antelope Valley say they want to push the sex offenders out. They don't even want them around their cities. They don't want them around here, and they want some help. They want help from Sacramento. To that, what do you say?
Well, I think there's a number of options. We're taking a look at them. Obviously, the problem is tracking them. Some in the military, some people are chipped just to make sure where they are. You could also chip the criminals. I mean, we could look at that possibility, so we always know where they are. We have Alcatraz. It's an empty prison.
There you
it's
go.
a nice place to put them far away from us where they can't get out. There's a number of options. If you're gonna rehabilitate, then you got to do a better job. If you're not, then take them out of our society so at least we're safe.
Right.
You're weighing their potential future against our safety, and I think there needs to be some weight sometime on the victims, not just the perpetrators.
I've always thought they have all these base closures. They're already razor wire fence around them. They have facilities where they can work, where they can have recreation. There's nice golf courses and housing on there. Why can't they go there afterwards?
There's no money.
Okay.
Well, they have industry there. Have them support.
Just what you're saying, I think prisons should be self-supporting. They used to, years ago, where they'd grow their own food, they'd make a product, they'd be self-sufficient instead of costing us taxpayers. And I think we need to go back to that requirement where the prison's now allowed to not necessarily hurt private industry or compete, but come up with a product that isn't out there with private industry, and at the same token make it self-sufficient. It doesn't hurt the taxpayers. Now they can stay there for the rest of their lives, and it doesn't cost us.
Right.
I agree.
The city of Lancaster fought their ordinances. They wanted to keep them in place. They actually went to court. They were battling with Michelle Egberts and her attorney and AV Easton Kern. The city of Palmdale already saw that they'd be throwing good money after bad, and this was something that they weren't going to win at this point right now. But one local council member says, you see, I told you so.
Yeah.
Okay? We should have fought it every step of the way.
Well, the question is how much principal can you afford and how much can the taxpayers? I think it's up to Sacramento to straighten out that legal question and maybe allow the cities now to be able to pass the legislation they need. That's something both as an attorney and as a legislator I'll look into.
But I also think that Michelle does have a point when you say we want to have all of these regulations and these rules and they can't do this and they can't do that. We don't want to put them in a point or a position of absolute desperation and then they feel like, let me just do anything to get off the street. I think along with all of those conversations, we absolutely have to have some place for them to go. We just can't say, okay, let's do the tiered program. Let's chip them because if the chip fails, if they dig it out, we're back in the same spot. We need to have a place where they can go.
Well, there's a lot of area with just tumbleweeds and jackrabbits.
I understand the point, but you're also weighing the cost of the taxpayers. You're weighing our safety too, which people seem to forget. And I agree. We find a place we can give them their own town, out of the area or something. But the concept is the first priority should be the safety of the general public.
Right.
The second priority is if you can help them rehabilitate. That's great. I'm for pushing people that that can prove it, but 1.9% or whatever percent it is still too much, and I don't want to risk the safety of the general public.
Yeah, and I don't want to risk it either. Like, Michelle tried to talk me into it. Like, Angelina, just test this out. No, I'm not trying it. I don't want my daughter or my grandchildren
we
to
don't want
try
to be the... I do understand what she's saying, but I don't want to be the guinea pigs, and I don't want my child to be the guinea pig.
Yeah.
Maybe the answer is we arm the rest of the California citizens, and if one of them goes berserk, then the citizen can take care of the problem.
There you go. Come up with that.
I knew I liked
a few guns would have helped in Venice.
They would have. They're allowed back in society, but if they make the mistake, they pay for their mistake.
I like that thought. I want to thank you for taking the time. I know today is the Assembly's first day back in session.
Yes, we're handling the Senate bills that are coming over to our side, and they're handling the Assembly bills that are going over to their side.
Okay. Well, take a good look at SB 386.
I will.
All right. Thank you
so much.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Thanks for taking the time to join us.
My pleasure. Bye.
Thanks.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in just 2 minutes. You're listening to AVNewsCast on News Talk Radio 1380.
There's a school in Palmdale that's become the talk of the town. It's called the Guidance Charter School, and many parents say it's magical. The Guidance Charter School is WASC certified, scored 783 in academic performance, and has an educational curriculum that exceeds what the state of California recommends. The curriculum is enriched through age-appropriate exposure for information technology, arts, foreign language such as Arabic, and physical education. The Guidance Charter School is now going to have a full CIF sports program with soccer, basketball, track, cheerleading, and more. They're an open enrollment school, publicly funded, and have been in business for 12 years, fully approved by Palmdale School District. The Guidance Charter School has small class sizes such as 20 students in grades K through 3, 25 in 4 through 8, and just 30 students in grades 9 through 12. Call the Guidance Charter School in Palmdale today at 661-272-1701. That's the Guidance Charter School in Palmdale, 661-272-1701. And check out their website at thegcs.org. A better high school choice.
Are you finding yourself buried in your house payment, completely stressed out and don't know what to do? Please listen to what I'm about to tell you. First, understand that you are not the only one that's having problems. Many folks in the Antelope Valley are going through the same thing. What's most important right now is that you take control. Just because you've been turned down for a loan modification or received a notice of default doesn't mean you can't be in control. You own the property still. You can be in control, and I can help. I know how stressful it is. I know what it is to be in the dark on this. I've helped a lot of people in the Antelope Valley, but you have to take action. Call me, Chuck Simons, at 661-350-1006. I want to help you. My team and I will meet with you for free, and we'll go over your options. Don't just sit back, bury your head, and lose your house to foreclosure. I can help you, but you have to call. 661-350-1006. Together, we'll draw up a roadmap to relieving the stress. Just because you're not able to make the payments on your house doesn't mean you don't have options. You do. I can and I will help you negotiate a short sale with your bank. I'll explain all the benefits and how you can rebuild your credit. Call me, Chuck Simons, at 661-350-1006. Let's solve your problems together today.
Welcome back to AVNewsCast.com on News Talk 1380.
We've got a couple of callers we're going to put on at the same time. Hi, everybody. You're on live on News Talk Radio. Who's this?
This is Jeff Moffatt.
Jeff
Moffatt. Hello, Jeff.
Hey.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing wonderful.
I understand you threw your hat in the ring for the Palmdale School District.
Yes, he did.
I did. Yeah, some of those situations happen. But when you're a leader, if you can't get something accomplished by others, you do it yourself.
Did you have an opportunity to listen to the first half of our show?
I caught the last portion of it with Steve Fox.
Okay.
Okay.
And what's your feelings on it?
Well, my buddy Steve Fox gave an interesting Machiavellian response. he promised to the constituents what he knows as an attorney is blatantly illegal and unconstitutional. Interesting idea, but my thought, and where it's relevant to my position going for school board, and also my work in reentry, is that there's a high correlation of individuals that are in the prison system that don't have a high school diploma.
Mm-hmm.
There's even a lower percentage that have college degrees and graduate degrees.
So what are you saying? Teach them algebra and calculus and we won't have this problem?
What I'm saying is that you look at this mathematical 1.9%. Absurdly small when you're looking at from a statistical standpoint. But if you're looking at, say, there's an 80% possibility that if you don't happen to have a high school diploma, that you're going to have problems. Or let's flip the numbers. 80% plus of the people that are in prison do not have a high school diploma. Does it make more sense to address that?
Well, don't they have GED programs that you can get into if you're in prison?
Well,
if there's a lack of motivation on their part.
Yeah.
But here is the point: is that if we're going to deal with numbers, and that's what I do for a living, but that's the thing. You look at where can you change society the most. You can change it the most by making sure that people have a relevant education. You have to pay the teachers an appropriate amount. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to get the discussion right now, as opposed to having teachers fight over some silly furlough days and days off without pay, which shouldn't be the conversation. The conversation should be, why can't we retain the top instructors and pay them over 5 years the same level of money, or at least half of what the superintendent has made over the last 5 years. He's made a 43% pay raise. So if we can take the situation and try to retain the best minds, and we have kind of the blue-eyed cocoa philosophy, you bring in the best minds, you pay them decently, you'll get a good result.
Well, I will never get through the unions.
Well, there is.
They're there to protect the deadwood.
I grew up as the son of a union machinist.
Mm-hmm.
So, but at the same point in time, my dad saw that unions were kind of a dying breed, and then if you start looking at it from a macroeconomic curve, in some cases, the unions price themselves out.
Mm-hmm. I get what you're saying. It's just that, in my opinion, it doesn't matter if Richard had a diploma from a high school or a college degree. If you got the bad wiring in your head, it is what it is.
You got a head full of bad ideas.
And I also get, because I will agree with you in, sometimes people do make mistakes and they have to go to jail and pay for their crime. And then we make them pay for their crime by putting this stamp on them and giving them the inability to be able to get a viable job once they get out. So I do think that there's definitely work out there that we need to iron out so that they can actually come back into society and be viable and be, a citizen that we wouldn't mind sitting next to, but not the Richards. I totally think that we need to do the tiers, but the Richards need to go somewhere.
Here is the conundrum. And I actually know Michelle, and the fact that she's trying to do reentry, which is something that I did for 20 years, and we have an agreement where she's going to take over some of my facilities. But here is the problem we have. At least, we were looking at Richard going into my facilities, but I have a mix of kids that live there, and because he's a 290, I couldn't take him.
Right.
So here's a situation where if you are literally ostracized by society, those that want to give a helping hand can't because of the government regulations. And in some situation, do you push this person even further to committing criminal acts because they break, because there's no resources.
No, you don't.
You know, what's interesting...
From my standpoint, that's, I'm deeply unhappy with Richard. But at the same time, I want to focus in on why I'm in the race for Palmdale School District, is if you start looking at the high correlation between those that are in prison and the fact that they don't have high school diplomas when they get there, and the fact that we're paying, the government is paying $60,000 plus per year. Used to be $30,000, but now it's $60,000 per incarcerated individual per year. Why are we paying more for an incarcerated individual that we're going to possibly have problems like Richard, where they're more on the recidivism list, even though it might be 1.9% for the sex crimes? Once you're in the system, it's hard to get out. More sense to, in fact, put more money into the educational system, stop playing games with the teachers, hire the absolute instructors. And the other thing that I want to do is I want to bring music, arts, and sports back into the elementary school system.
Well, a lot of people want the music, arts, and sports.
And I'm willing to help personally fund some of that. And when you start, but at the same time,
be careful what you wish for.
Steve's on the oversight board.
I happen to be blessed, but at the same point in time, if my catalyst for entering, or what I've heard is my skin in the game, is I've got a 6-year-old in the system. I'm one of the only people that have, of the 11 that have pulled papers, and that actually has a child in the system. So I'm running for a reason, and if I want to make sure that the school system is as good or better than the one that I went through in Colorado, it makes sense to bring the best minds possible. I happen to bring forth a situation that I'm a product of a union son or a union family, but I also see that economically unions have problems. One of the things that happens for some of my clients who, in the tax world, who are unions, one example was a welder. They didn't get along with the boss. They were terminated for cause. In the school district, you have a difficult time with the unions to terminating for any cause.
Mm-hmm.
So can you get the unions to modify it to be in line with some of the other unions, that if you actually have cause, A, you can get rid of the person, and B, you've got an incentive. Right now we're happy in Palmdale to be in the high 700s in some of the schools, when in fact some of the schools that we should be competing with are in the valley are in 800s.
Yeah, totally.
And my goal is to make the Palmdale school education system the best, private or public. There happens to be a wonderful program, a joint venture that they have done in Jack Northrop by math magicians. I don't know if you're familiar with it. They brought in brought in arts and academics in an after-school type of program.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I think they're out of Quartz Hill, aren't they?
They're out of Quartz Hill. Wonderful woman. When I was doing drug treatment back in the day, Michelle Senas, one of the owners, used to do some group programs for some of the drug addicts and prostitutes and what have you, and the battered women that had substance abuse in their lives. This woman did some of that community outreach through some of the local churches.
Well, Jeff, we'll set up a time. I've only got 20 seconds left in the show.
Sure.
We'll set up some time and bring you on the show, and we'll talk about that, because we totally pivoted away from our focus originally. Yeah. But that's all good?
My focus was, on this case, was the recidivism rate, and focus on the 80% rather than the 1.9%.
Yeah, well, that recidivism rate is a messed up deal, because if you're a registered sex offender and you come out of prison and you commit armed robbery, or physical battery, it doesn't even go into that category. So I think that's a whole messed up deal. But thanks for calling in, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
You're welcome. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Have a great day. We've got a great show in store for you tomorrow. Yep. You're listening to AVNewsCast on News Talk Radio 1380, and we'll be back tomorrow.
Thanks, Traci.
Hey, thank you.